Welcome to the 8th grade Math Homework Helper Series. Tonight's homework is PR3, Graphing Proportional Relationships. Start by taking a look at question number 2. It says Kayla makes $10.25 an hour. So first thing we need to do is establish a unit rate. Since this is over 1 hour, we can pretty much copy exactly what the problem says. So we have y equal to 10.25 and x equal to 1. And if we set up a data table, we are always going to start at 0 for x and y because these always start at the origin, and I just randomly picked 5 and 10 to progress on the x-axis, and in order to determine what the y point would be, you simply take the number that you chose for the x-axis and multiply it times the unit rate of 10.25, and so that gets me 51.25 for 5 and 102.50 for 10. And once I have these 3 points, that's all. The other 3 points are all that I need to plot on my grid. And the equation, which is y equals 10.25x, I can then set up my graph. Well, let's take a look at all the different parts of this graph. First of all, you don't need to label x and y, but it's a good idea to do so. I recommend it. You do need to have a title. So my title is Kayla's Earnings. It could be a variety of things as long as it makes reference back to the actual equation. You need to have a y label and a scale, and an x label and a scale. So there's many ways you could set up the y scale, and I chose in this particular problem, since the unit rate was $10.25, to count by $10.25 intervals. And the benefit to my doing that is that when I plot my points, they're going to fall right at the intersection of the lines. It makes it easier. The drawback to doing that is it takes a few minutes to figure out what 10 times 10.25 is times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 and so on. So you're going to lose a little bit of time there, but you're going to gain a little bit of time in terms of being able to plot these things and not having to estimate where the point should fall. So once I've done that, I then needed to think about, well, how much of this space do I want to come out? Because I need to use at least 75% of this grid. And so I established that if I counted by ones and made it to 12, I could come all the way out to 10, which is what I chose for my x-axis, and that would certainly use up 75% of the grid. My label for the y-axis is earning in dollars, and my label for the x-axis is number of hours. Don't forget also you need to put the equation as the name of the line, and that pretty much concludes it. Okay, let's take a look at another one. Let's take a look at number 4. For number 4, it says $8.95 for 5 cans of soup. So if we look at this, we can say, okay, it's $8.95 over 5, and we can see that that's not a unit rate because it's not over 1. So if we divide these two, we can see that it works out to be $1.69 over 1. This would be our unit rate. And so with this as our unit rate, we could actually go ahead and set up our equation, y equals 1.69x, and then we can set up a data table. So I've chosen 0, 2, and 5 for my x, and 0, 0, of course, we're always going to start at our origin. At the point of 2, if I multiply that times 1.69, that gives me 3.83. And at the point of 5, again multiplying by 1.69, I get $8.95, which is what I started with, which is another reason why I chose it. It was easy to use. Okay, I'm going to show you two different graphs for this one. The first graph I'm going to show you is doing what I talked about before, which is forcing you to estimate. So I chose a simple counting by twos, and even then I skipped every other line, so technically I counted by ones, but I'm only showing the even numbers on here. And I spread it out so that I could hit at least 6 on the bottom, and that forced me to have to skip every other line, and that enabled me to use up more than 75% of my grid. Now my 0, 0 point was easy enough to plot, but for 2 I have to hit $3.83. Well, I have a 2, I have a 3, I have a 4, so 280 or 383 basically is an estimate, and so I estimated that it fell somewhere right about there. And then for my 5 I had to hit $8.95. Well, I have a line for 9, and so my estimate would be that it falls just slightly underneath it. And this is fine, you certainly can do it this way. And the last thing I would need to do is to take and put the name of my equation on the map. So that's one way that you could do it. Another way that you could do it is to change the scale on the y-axis and count by 169. And so I counted by 169, and then 2 times 169, and then 3 times 169, and then 4 times 169, and 5 times 169, and I went as high as 6 to use up the grid. What this did, keeping the same scale on the x, is it spread out my graph a little more, and it made it much easier to plot my points, because at 2 I know I hit 383 exactly, and at 5 I know I hit 895 exactly. So neither one of these graphs is technically incorrect. They're both right. It took a little more time to create the y scale over here, and a little less time to plot the points, and a little more accuracy in plotting them. So you certainly could do it either way. Please use the problems that I helped you solve tonight to do the additional problems in your homework. And remember, the key to success in math is not only working hard, but working smart.